It's alright. Don't let them tell you what to do. Make a fool. It's alright. It's alright. It's in my mind. Oh, take a ride. It's alright. It's alright. And it's very far away. But it's going there. It's alright. It's alright. Would you like to come along? You can help me sing this song and it's alright. It's alright. Don't let them tell you what to do. Make it for you and it's alright. It's alright. We are good. Where? We are worth where? We're on worth where? We're on worth
Okay, good morning. Welcome to New Technology 2016. I'm glad to see so many of you today. This is of course also available in Hangouts, but I really appreciate if people come to class. That's so much more fun. But let me get started here. So my name is Ólafur Andri, and for the next 12 weeks I will be teaching you this course on technology. So what I want to do is I want to change the way you view the world in general due to technology and technological change. And if you read the business news, there are a lot of companies that are, struggling, maybe going bankrupt, stores are closing, and jobs are being lost, people laid off. Most of this has to do with changes in technology. Some of it is very unexpected, but usually it's not so much unexpected. It's usually very predictable, or at least some things are predictable, not everything. I actually did a trailer for the course a few years ago. I'm still using the same trailer. I want to show you this trailer. Every course should have a trailer, to get students to sign up. And when you watch this, these are sentences from the first 6 chapters of the textbook and the lecture. So the voices that you will hear will be from the lectures that are coming, the first 6. Then I ran out of song. The soundtrack ended. So let's start by watching this. Some of you may have seen this.
Technology has become the most powerful force in the world. All the things that we see today that are changing our lives, we can always trace back to the introduction of some new technology. So it's a force that is the most powerful force that has been unleashed on this planet.
We're living in a world that is best described as global exponential. Something happens in China or India or California, you know about it seconds later, if not milliseconds later. And it's exponential in that not only is the life of our parents and you and your kids different, it's different over a few years. Think about the technologies that didn't exist 10 years ago that we're now completely and totally dependent on. So it's that rapid change that is creating this change, this missed expectation, if you would.
And that was something that reoccurred throughout the project was, the smaller the scale you want to work on, the further back in time you have to go.
We take ideas from other people, from people we've learned from, people we run into in the coffee shop.
and we stitch them together into new forms and we create something new. That's really where innovation happens.
We all sit at various places at various times on the scale. What the law of diffusion of innovation tells us is that if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration, and then the system tips.
A problem with many designers and engineers is that they're too logical. And logic is wonderful, but it doesn't describe real behavior. And when we're designing technology, we have to design for real people.
But dude, you're in business. And business has no feelings. Technology doesn't care about us. Zero feelings for us. It's going to change and evolve. And unless you have the ability to change and evolve, unless you are the kind of person that does not draw lines in the sand, you need to recognize the change and, more importantly, the opportunity. Because there is a trillion, not a billion, $1 trillion in ad revenue that's going to leak down to all the hyper-local, super niche opportunities for you guys. That's a lot of money. That's a game-changing amount.
Okay. So all of these concepts, I will talk about them in the next few weeks. Okay, so let's just start the lecture, and I want to tell you a few stories to begin with. This guy, maybe you read the textbook, but you probably shouldn't know who this guy is. This is Stephen Elop. He was the CEO of Nokia. He's not anymore. And if you think about Nokia, it brings back memories. This was a company that owned the industry, smartphone industry, and the mobile industry. I mean, they had 35% of the world's market. Now that's huge to have 35% of the world's market in phones. Everybody wants to have a phone. We have a lecture on phones later. And they had, of the smartphone market, they had like 70-something% market share, which is basically you're a monopoly in the market. You own the market, basically. And then something happened. This is the stock price of Nokia. So they're at the peak there in 2007. And then down, and they had shares trading at 40 and then dropped down to something. So this is an example of technology or a company that is dominant in the industry, but then suddenly everything starts to go downwards. Now, what I want to explore is, why did this happen? Because this company had brilliant scientists. They were making brilliant phones. They had an excellent management team. Everything was going for them. And they could even predict where the future was going. And they were pretty good at it. But they didn't keep up with technology. And which is ironic, because this is a company that has survived so many years. It still exists, though, by the way. It hasn't gone. It was founded in 1871, making tires, boots, and cables. So they were not in the telecom industry at all. They launched their first phone in 1987, Mobira Cityman, which was a huge phone, like a suitcase. You had battery case with it. It was really, really big. And then it starts to focus on digital technologies like GSM and cellular phones. And the first phone came out, Nokia 1011, and all these landmark phones that came after that. Stock market, they were worth $186 billion at this time, and now, or at least a few years ago, they had this valuation had just gone. And 2003, they saw a lot of these phones, and then 2011, they abandoned their operating system. And you know why? Why did this happen? Did you notice that everything starts to go down 2007? What happened 2007? Of course, the iPhone happened.
Revolution.
Yeah, the iPhone effect. And you know, this was a crappy phone when it came out first. It was really expensive, low quality, and they thought nobody would want it. But people wanted it. But it was still low quality, very expensive. So if you're inside the competitors, phone competitor of Apple, your argument would be something like, have you seen the price of these things? It's so expensive. It's low quality. They can't even make decent phone calls. But people bought it. And what we are going to explore is, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And we're going to explore the sort of the trends that lies behind these things. So here's the key. If you look at this graph, you see the green one, that is Apple, and the orange one, that's Google. So what happened was that software companies took over. There was a shift from hardware to software. And now it was a software problem. And every time there's this shift, you have a company full of engineers that know how to make hardware. What about the software guys? They're not in the company. If you look at Nokia, the old phones, well, if you look at the software, it's a simple menu system, not very sophisticated, and it's logically organized. So everything is logically organized, not according to the user's need, but what is logical from an engineering standpoint. It became a software problem. And this is the blue slice there, is the Symbian to the left, and then Symbian drops. Symbian is gone now. It became very, very complicated. So there was a memo that ELOP, which I mentioned, came out with, said they were standing on a burning platform. The Symbian platform was too complicated. And this is from the memo. How did we get to this point? Why did we fall behind when the world around us evolved? This is what I've been trying to understand. I believe at least some of it has to do to our attitude inside Nokia. We poured gasoline on a burning platform. I believe we have lacked accountability and leadership to align and direct the company through this disruptive time. We had series of misses. We haven't been delivering innovation fast enough, so not collaborating. Well, one of the reasons, and there are many reasons, is that when there's a platform shift, the employees of the company, they're not the right employees anymore. Hardware employees, now we need software. The hardware is good enough. And that's a problem. There's actually a theory about this that I'm going to introduce to you later. And then they sold the, then they announced in 2011, they announced partnership with this nice gentleman over there, Microsoft, and then 2 years later, they just sold the devices. So Nokia making phone, I think they're still starting to make phone again, but Nokia continued with some other businesses that they had. Okay, so question is this the first time in history that a company, fails and becomes, irrelevant in the space that it's working on? Dominant business, irrelevant business in a few years. Well, it turns out that this is very common, and it has been throughout the history because of all the changes that happen in technology. So if you think about Western Union from 1878, now this is the time when people sent telegraphs, Morse code, dots and dashes. And they had networks of telegraph offices. So if you wanted to get a message across the country in Europe or in America, you would go to a telegraph office and somebody would type this message in, and somebody at the other end would send a person to deliver this message. This was very dominant. This is closely after the Civil War, American Civil War. And during the Civil War, they had communication. I mean, if you're in a war, you need communication network. That's key. Basic. And so in 1878, they had 7,000 offices, 7,500, 1,200 employees, and they had over 200,000 miles of cable. And this is the place that you would go to sort of to send these telegraphs. So they owned the business. And then this guy comes along. He just invented a new thing called a telephone. You know, you can actually talk into something and it will transfer the voice over a wire, and at the other end, people will hear. This was totally revolutionary. Totally revolutionary. Now, if you think about it, if you live in a time when telegraph is the main message, this sounds really strange, and it is really, really strange. So Bell, 1876, and I will talk about this a little bit later in the course, invented this telephone, and you know, he had problems finding people to fund him, getting investors. So what he did was he went to Western Union. They had the telegraph. And he said to them, you know, I can sell you this for $100,000, which is like a few millions today. And they actually looked at it, and they gave this problem to their engineers. And they came back and said, you know, if this is a good idea, which is not, it's technically impossible. Bell's vision is that every household would have a phone. I mean, how can you wire these things together? It's impossible. And this was the memo from this telephone has so many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a mean of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Famous last words. So they took their own prevailing technology model and sort of rationalized that this would be a model that nobody would ever want. So Bell went into a business of his own. He finally found some investors, created his Bell telephone company. Then he created AT&T, and the rest is history. And in the 80s, the US government had to break down the company because it has become so low, so big. So another example of disruption. Now, what happened after this is that people actually wanted telephones more than telegraphs. So what happens is that the telephone starts to become more popular and the telegraph starts to go down. This happens in a relatively few years. So in the end, Western Union went into the telephone business. And Bell, he had the patent, he sued them. And it's a famous story that he sued them. Trial went on for years and finally they settled. And Bell became the monopoly, had 17 years of patent. He owned the telephone industry for 17 years, 100%. And Western Union was made to get out of the telephone business. And they continued in the telegraph business. And it wasn't until 2007, on January 27th, that they made an announcement on their webpage. We don't do telegraphs anymore, it said, you know, in a pretty longer word. They stopped in 2007. That's not very long ago. And the Icelandic telephone office, they stopped last year sending telegraphs, I think. So the telegraph business is now Twitter or something like that. Actually, this isn't even rare. So 2 stories, 3rd story. Remember this? Do your parents have this or grandparents at the home? You know, there was a time last century when every parent would buy this and have in their homes. And there are several reasons for this. This was the world's knowledge, complete knowledge. Anything you wanted to look up, you would go to these books. And people loved this. People actually bought this. I'm not sure if they read this, but I think probably they read it out of, you know, hoping that their kids might wanna read this. So the sales in 1990 were like 650, and then it goes down. Can you imagine why? Not yet. Close. Not yet.
Basically.
Plastic CD-ROM disc. Plastic. And do you know what they said about it? Low quality crap. all the articles are crap. We have much better articles. Much better. And they were right. But the convenience of doing research or looking something up was obvious. So the CD-ROM, when it came out, and Carta, that was Microsoft Wikipedia, the convenience was so great, instead of books, they just killed the printed books business. So here's a chart that shows the Britannica, they peaked there, and here in 2000 you see the Wikipedia coming along. That was a little bit lower. So another example of very successful business, technology just wipes it away. Now if they were in the encyclopedia business, regardless of the sales channel, the Britannica guys, they would have gone on the internet as well, created CD. They actually did. But the business model, getting money for this was the hard thing for them. So this is the old way, and now online everywhere, updated in real time, crowdsourced. I mean, who writes Wikipedia? Everybody, except few people write a lot, and a lot of people write tiny things. That's always the case. That's the law. And again, let's take another example. Remember this? Remember when you went to the video store? You had to go twice. You had to return the stupid thing and then pay the late fee because you didn't feel like yesterday, and so you had to pay a fine. Blockbuster, they were in the video store business. And 2010, they had 5,200 stores. I mean, they had a really, really compelling business model. You would come to the store, big stores, really big stores, lots of selections, and you could have like 4 days. And they had this really, really powerful computer system, which people like. You could go to any store and you check out movies there. Now, then 2010, they filed for bankruptcy. What happened? Of course, people stopped renting DVDs, but why? These guys, again, a plastic thing. This is the plastic version. This is not the Netflix you're watching today. This is the plastic version. So now technology has moved on, so you can really have DVDs really, really cheap. Really cheap. So cheap that you can make a copy of a movie, put it in an envelope, and ship it to your customers. So here's the business model. Create a subscription model. You pay fixed fee, $10, whatever it was, and you can rent 5 movies, any movie, 5 movies a month. And you go online, on the web, and you select the movies, and they will ship the movies to you. And if you don't ship them back using the postal service, you can't have but 5. So if you want to have the 6th, you have to send the others back. But it worked. People loved it. And if you think about the US culture is very much, centered around mail delivery. It's very easy to use the mail service there. Now, what is fascinating about companies like Netflix is that when the internet started to be capable of streaming, they switched from the postal model to the streaming model. So they didn't fail. They saw the changes coming. So that's interesting. So technology is one of the major forces in change, and that's what I want to be exploring here today. And let's look at some statistics showing this. So we have 3.5 billion people. That's billion people connected to a single network, which means you can reach 3.5 billion people very, if you know them, you can reach them very easily. There are more mobile devices on the internet than computers. This happened a few years ago. There are, in fact, more mobile devices than toothbrushes in the world. Printed newspapers. Do you read printed newspapers? They're sort of dying. And people that are advertising in these mediums, maybe they know what audience they're addressing because there's a huge segment of people that don't open printed newspapers. Bookstores are closing. Actually, they're turning into coffee shops, something like that. Wi-Fi cafes. CD sales is gone. LP probably lives a little bit on. TV stations need to go out of on the internet or just go away. The audience for TV has dropped a lot. Social networks, I mean, we don't even understand what they're doing. Amazon, they're selling more digital books than printed books. And this is old number, 6 billion hours of video watched each month on YouTube. I mean, it's huge. It's probably increased a lot. Self-driving cars are taking to the roads. This is happening in the next few years. Technology is here, but there's a lot of regulations thing. And people are starting to lose jobs because of robots and automation, clever computers, intelligence computer. And I will talk about machine intelligence, stuff like this. Really, really interesting stuff. And these are old numbers, but a lot of people are on Facebook, and people are tracking their health and with sensors, and so there's a health revolution that is coming up. A lot of revolutions are coming right now. So we are now at a time where things are just happening. So what I want to do is I want to understand technology trends. If somebody would ask me, about gadgets, how much memory phones have or whatever, I don't know. I'm not interested in technology or disks or disk drives. I mean, it's a fascinating subject, but it's the impact on people that I'm interested in, and on businesses and on societies. And understanding these changes, that's what I'm trying to do. And what I do is I work a lot looking into the future. So sometimes I feel that I'm living in the future and everybody else is, come on, get with it. And but it takes time, and I'm always looking ahead. For example, let's take an example here. Living in the future. This is actually not the future. This has been out for a long time. And I actually wrote about the smartphone revolution way back. This was in 2013, and I was sort of, these smartwatches are coming. I wonder how they will be. But they didn't. They didn't come until 2014, not last year. Apple came out last year, but Samsung and others came with really, really great watches. But still remains to be seen how people are using this. Actually, I've been wearing this for some time, and what's new to me is I can actually see the time. That's the basic function. Very convenient. And I can see the temperature outside, another convenient function. But we still need to see where this is going, change people's life. I mean, telling time it's a long function way back. But the ideas of a smartwatch is actually quite old. So this is from 60s comic. Have you seen these episodes? I mean, so tonight you can go on YouTube, type in Dick Tracy, and watch episodes. It's really good. And he had this two-way radio wristwatch. So people have been talking about this since the 60s, but nothing happened. And there's a reason for this. And one of the things that I'm going to explain why this didn't happen until 2014.
This is
Before I go into this, so this is what is happening next. The next big revolution, and here's a news item introducing this big revolution that is coming right now, this year.
This is prime time.
It was more than 100 years ago that Lewis Carroll wrote about Alice's trip through the looking glass. Now that fiction has become a reality, or you might say a virtual reality, because that's the name of a new computer technology that many believe will revolutionize the way we live. But Jay Schaedler explains, virtual reality lets you travel to places you've never been and see things you've never seen and do things you've never done without ever leaving the room.
If dreams could be sold, what would you buy? The poet's question may soon have a practical answer.
The goal of virtual reality is simple. It's total submersion, complete detachment from reality.
The doors are opening on a world where the line between reality and illusion has dissolved.
I want to fly over Mars. I want to experience everything the roving exploration machines experience. I want to be there. I want to explore the planet myself.
Advances in computer graphics over the past 10 years are making it possible to create artificial three-dimensional worlds, complete and convincing, though they only exist in the mind of the viewer and the heart of the computer. Known as virtual reality, or VR, this new technology uses pictures and sounds to wrap around your senses. Imagine a place and you'll be able to step into it. Conjure up a dream and you'll be able to fly through it.
It's unreal. It's different. And it's so natural that when you experience it, it's something that people come out and says, wow, that's unreal.
Jonathan Waldron is a 31-year-old computer scientist in England. As a college student, he designed computer graphics. Now, he's launched one of the first companies to mass-produce virtual reality systems.
Okay, so here we are going into virtual space, and here I want to show you a little application where we've got a car, engine.
As with most VR systems, Waldron uses stereoscopic images projected onto tiny screens inside the viewer's helmet. A powerful computer then generates the graphics and sounds needed to convince the viewer he's in another world. The illusion is completed when motion sensors in Waldron's glove and helmet allow him to begin interacting with whatever he sees.
What I can do is, as you can see, freely move the articles all around anywhere I like in space. Now, on a conventional computer, this would take an awful long time. Here in the virtual world, you just pick them up and move them around.
So do you find this suspicious?
This is like 1990s, late 1990s things.
90s, at least 90s. Yes. So why? We haven't seen this damn thing. Why? Expensive? Crude? Low quality? Really expensive. That the technology wasn't there. It wasn't ready. Technology wasn't ready. But then last year, this happens.
Good night, everyone.
So, another one of my own turns out to be diversion.
Using the breath and the movement to achieve the sankara. Yeah, you never think of bears like beer, but they do. Don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging.
What? Oh. That is yours. Sorry. That's fun. Okay. How we doing?
So here's my VR set. It turns out that the technology is ready now. So you put your phone here. Of course, you start an app, and then you can watch like this. This is the cheap version. $20 for a cardboard headset, but it really works. It's really fun. So your first reading assignment is to read about what this means. I want to show you also another video showing the CCP game. So imagine you're in a spaceship, and the movement is the movement with your head. So you're sitting down, and your mission is to go out there and shoot other spaceships, do stuff like that. And people are actually still working out what are the types of games that work. Walking is clearly really bad because, you have to move physically. Otherwise, you don't feel so good. Have you tried this? Anybody? Yes? With really good headsets, this is awesome to be in this space. It really feels really nice. But this question I want to ask, is it real or does it really work? Has anybody tried this here? A few people have. You put on these goggles, and do you really feel the emotions that, you're standing on top of a skyscraper and you're looking down at traffic? Do you feel scared? Do you feel afraid of heights? It turns out that it goes a very, very long way. Let me show you something here. So this is an experience that they did. And you're in a room. So you're in a room, and you have to walk across the room. You're not walking on a bridge high up. You're in a room, and you know it. But it's difficult. They can't do it. You can experience falling down. So this is actually messing with your mind. And what happens is that this goes to the part of your mind that doesn't do very much analytical thinking, to the danger zone in your mind. I mean, if you meet a tiger outside, I mean, the part of the brain that will tell you to run activates. You're not going to do any logical thinking, trying to evaluate the situation, you just run. Now, these things are going straight to that section of the brain, fucking with your brain. And it seems to work. But what applications do you think people will have? You know, what applications do you think will come? Anybody?
We've seen a lot of scenic tours.
Scenic tours, yes. This is something that we want to explore. But why is 2016 the time for virtual reality? It didn't happen in 1991, but it happened in 2016. It's going to happen in 2016. At least there's going to be a lot of hype about virtual reality in 2016. Well, there's a concept called adjacent possible. When all the enabling technologies and conditions are ready, the innovation will emerge. And we will explore this in a later section. So imagine that all the world's knowledge is in one room, and based on this knowledge, you have an idea. And you take that into the next room. A door will open, and you have a room full of knowledge with everything in the second room, the first room, plus the innovation. And again, a door opens. When we is here, many doors will open. And then this happens again and again and again. And there is a property describing these things, mathematical property, which is really elegant, simple. It's called exponential growth. And that really distorts our mind when we are looking at these things. And so what I think we should do now is I want to take a break. I think we have a break 5 over. So let's take a break, and I will continue with this. And after the break, I will finish these slides and then go into introducing the course, what we're going to talk about. Okay? So, perfect.
I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if it was the past. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Now my day from morning to the dawn. But I won't be done when morning comes. Doing it all night, all summer. Gonna spend it like no other. It was a crush, but I couldn't get it. It was a rush, but I gave it up. It was a crutch. Now I'm mine when I said too much. That's all it was, so I gave it up. I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if it was the last. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Now my day is morning to the dawn, but I won't be done what it does. Doing it all night, all summer. Gonna spend it like no other. It was a crush. I kept saying I'm saying much. Yeah, things weren't good, so I gave it up. Ooh, don't trust, don't bluff. I'm just better off without them cuffs. Yeah, the sun won't set on us. Yeah, when low, when my still was running dry. live my day as if it was the last. My day as if it was the last. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the way I wanna. Have my day long into the dawn, but I won't be done. Doing it all night, all summer.
Okay, let's continue. So exponential growth, and it was really with computers that we started to notice that that advances in technology were growing exponentially. And I will explore this a little bit further in another lecture, how this and why this happens. But since the 1960s, when people started to make computers, Moore's law, when Gordon Moore stated that the amount of semiconductors that you can put on a silicon wafer was doubling every year. He changed that to 18 months. Basically, it's sort of about 18 months. You get the speed of computers doubling every 18 months. Now, that's a really scary property because when you go to the bigger numbers, the amount of change gets very, very high. Going from 1 to 2 is not very much. To 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 32, 64, 120. It's not that much. But when you have billion, you have 2 billions, 4 billions, 8 billions. That's a lot. And we have seen this happen since the 1960s. And right around this time, we went into the second half of the chessboard. If the doublings are more than 32 doublings you have. And I will tell you why this chessboard story comes. There's a story behind this. So from 2000 until 2010, computers shrank from being a desktop thing to being something you would carry with you. And the thing is that these specifications are remarkably similar. And even the screen size resolution of the iPhone is similar to the desktop version of computers 10 years earlier. So it went to our pocket. Then 5 years later, it came on our wrists. And what is happening is that now we can make these components that are needed for these devices. The iPhone actually created a huge revolution, not in phone industry, it changed the phone industry, but it also created or impacted, had a huge influence on things like drones. Because the sensors that they needed to make for these new phones, like gyroscopes and all these sensors that, the phone knows exactly how you're turning it. So if you turn it sideways, it will trigger a message in the phone. And this is very useful for people that are making quadcopters and stuff like this. So this is the change. And we will see if we take the iPhone and put it here in 2020, what will we have there? It's going to be much smaller, much faster. So computing is changing a lot. We can build all these sensors in a really, really small way. Now, the same period is also what I call the digital decade. And this is where, if you go back and remember this, you had like communication, and the only thing that was digital was texting. And then music was the first thing that people started to share on the internet, to the dismay of all the musicians who got angry and sued downloaders. But music was the first. Why was that? Because the bandwidth required to download music wasn't that great. You could make it. I mean, one song took like 3 minutes back then, and that was acceptable. Movie, you would not want to do that. Pictures came next. Smart cameras, digital cameras. And when they came to the market, what did people say? Low quality, heavily priced. And they were. TV shows became streamed next or downloaded next. And then smartphone 2007, sorry, and books. And finally, we have movies. And a few years ago, Netflix took off in a big, big way because the bandwidth was there. So it's not exponential in computing power. It's also exponential in storage and bandwidth. Now, around the same time, we get all these crazy things going on like Facebook, Twitter, and all these things. So this decade changed or introduced a lot of new technologies. 3-point-something billion people connected to the internet. This graphic is actually all the connections between nodes. And we're going to explore the properties of this network later. So this is the digital decade where content escapes the form. Music becomes something that is intangible. It's not linked to the CD anymore. You don't go and buy a CD. And the book is not linked to the pages anymore. It can be anywhere. So you see the content sort of disappeared from the distribution mechanism because CD is just a distribution mechanism. Now, the question is this: what happens after the digital decade? We have all these technologies finally. What's going to happen next? Well, a lot of businesses are going to get fucked up due to changes in technology, but it's also going to be a lot of opportunities. So what is happening now is that we're in the middle of a transition decade or transformation decade. We see this all over the place. There's transformation happening. So one buzzword introducing today is digital transformation. That's what is happening. Business models are getting changed. Businesses are changing. Even businesses that don't have anything to do with digital technologies, they have to. And I would have lots of examples of how you can use smartphones, real-time software, cloud-based solution, and artificial intelligence. Let me give you one example though. The port of Hamburg in Germany, they have a capacity of shipping containers like 11,000, I think, per some, I don't know what it was, a year or whatever. They want to increase it by 3 times, go to 33,000. But they don't have space. There's a city right next to it. So they can't expand geographically. So what do? Well, cloud software, real-time software, and they innovate using software. So if you're picking up a container, you're a driver, a truck driver, and you come to the port to pick up a container. Then you have to wait before you enter the port. And then you will get a message in your iPhone saying, now you can start. And then you will drive for like 6 minutes or whatever. And exactly when the container that you will be carrying is being taken out of the ship, the truck will be there. Boom, and it drives off. It was only a few minutes in the port. Real-time software that is transforming the way ports work. So it's a simple example. And more businesses are doing this. And we're also moving, and this is really a revolution. We're moving from these 20th century technology where you had structure. So imagine a few years ago, you had to book a plane ticket, or you had to book a hotel, plan a trip. And what would you do? You would go to a travel agent, and that travel agent would talk to another travel agent that had connection somewhere, and maybe another one. So there would be like 10 people involved in making your trip happen. Today, you don't have to do that. You can just go on Airbnb, find the room, book it, talk to the person who owns the room, network. So this is completely changing the way businesses work. So this is why I call it the transformation decade. Business models of the 20th century are moving, and new models are changing. Some of the businesses, they can't handle this, and they will lose. New businesses will come, so there's a huge opportunity here. I mean, huge opportunities. So we're moving from one-to-many to many broadcasting. 20th century was all about broadcasting, radio, TV, broadcasting. And now it's sort of a read-only culture. You can only consume. But today I can take a video. I'm producing a video right here. I will put this on the internet. So I'm a producer. I create content. I create stuff that people are going to watch. Hopefully somebody will. So it's a read-write culture. I can now read. I can now write stuff and read. I can create stuff. Business model, established business model are getting disrupted, and the gatekeepers are going away. The gatekeeper, that was the person that decided that on a Saturday night, you're going to watch this Disney movie on TV, whether you liked it or not. It was the only thing on TV that night. And there was somebody else that decided many months ago that this Disney movie would be what you and your family would be watching this evening. But now it's all about Netflix and stuff like this. So you spend 1 hour trying to find something on Netflix and then 2 hours watching Netflix. Or this is why people like series, TV series, because they don't have to make a choice. They can just watch for hours. So we now have the world in our pocket. Everything's smaller. There are new input devices coming. We use gestures, we use touch more, we use audio much more. Audio is going to be much bigger than it is. And these devices that we have, they're all connected to the same cloud. Somewhere out there, there's a data center, and the cloud actually, for example, if you're using Gmail, your inbox could be anywhere in the world. You don't know where it is. So access to all of these knowledge services, and this is changing control. The gatekeepers are gone. The message, the distribution of the message is gone. And this is having a huge change on societies. And it's changing people's behaviors. And a lot of established businesses are trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And they have created this concept of millennials. That's probably you guys. Like strange creatures that are, doing totally different things. But I think many people, not only young people, it's just changing a lot of people's life, how we behave. And there's a fundamental change in how we consume, produce, and how we connect. We sort of get enslaved into this world, creating a lot of new problems. And there's a fundamental way in which businesses operate. This is Airbnb, of course you know that. Uber, of course you know that. Have you tried Uber? It's really nice. You just click something and you can see the driver coming. You don't pay anything, and you just get credit card bill. It's really nice. But if you take a normal taxi, you can hear about the taxi driver talking about how bad Uber is all the time. Spotify, the music before and during the break was the daily choices of Spotify. So I don't select these songs. If you're wondering about my musical taste, Spotify did. Netflix, of course. So we're going from this world where we had these clutter in our home, CDs, DVDs, and now everything's online. Makes houses much cleaner, don't you think? You don't have all these CDs lying around. And like we did say it before, who rents DVD anymore? All people actually do, some people. They are called laggards. They're sort of trailing behind. Printed books. The book is one of the things that is going to be difficult to change because people like books. They like to touch it, smell it. So it's going to last for a long time. And it makes the perfect gift also. But magazines, I subscribe to lots of magazines. Wired magazine, for example, I subscribe to Wall Street Journal. I couldn't do this a few years ago, but I can get today's edition in my iPad every morning. Bookstores are selling coffee now. Have you noticed? I've been to the coffee house like this and come across a book, physical book, and what do you do? I don't want to have books in my house, so I buy it online using their Wi-Fi, of course. Stores are becoming fitting rooms, so you go to the stores, try things on, then order online. because it's maybe cheaper, more convenient. And many stores, they don't even have the inventory anymore. Sorry. People should know that I'm busy. And this is in Helsinki. I lived there a couple of years ago, and you could go and use an app, take a QR code here, and make an order, and they will ship it to you later that afternoon. And if you want something to eat, you know, a takeout, Chinese perhaps, these guys will go and get it for you. So you just pay a little bit premium on top of it, and they will deliver you the whatever you ordered. So we're going from this to an owner-less lifestyle. So instead of owning a car, why would you own a car? I mean, you can. There's an app in the phone, an icon, and I need a car. Ding, there's an Uber. But if you need, for example, you need to go to IKEA. You know, IKEA is always way out there in the countryside, and so you get a zip car or whatever, and you go and pick it up. You get a PIN code, pick it up. Why would you need to own a car? And there's even services. But if I bought a new car and it's sitting outside right now, and probably 99% of the time it's just doing nothing, maybe I could rent it out while I'm not using it. If somebody needs to go, they can just go online, find the car, and take it. I will get money. So I will be in business. And freedom of the 20th century was owning a car. This was the independence way. So you have a car, and then you have your independence and you have your freedom. Not today. All you need to do is have a smartphone. This is how the world has changed. And the transformation of the 20th century, we have industry to 3D printing robots, mass production to mass customization, design, broadcasting to personal streaming, gatekeepers to users review, and friends review. If you want to know if this movie is good, you ask your friends or you ask the reviewers that saw the movie. You don't ask the gatekeepers. You don't ask the maker of the movie even. And scarcity is now in abundance. And I will talk a whole lecture about this concept, where you have, in the 20th century, there was a problem with distribution because there were so few shelves in the stores for CDs. You had to have some limited number of music produced. Now you don't have that. It's abundant. So how can you run a business where everything is changing? And that's the question that I'm going to explore. We're seeing that more and more businesses are getting prepared for these things. So that's sort of the introduction. And now I'm going to tell you about how we are going to operate in the next weeks. So a little bit of introduction to myself. I'm an adjunct at this university, have been for many, many years. I also work as a technical visionary for pneumatic pottery solutions, which used to be called Betware. That's a company that I created in 1998 with my business partner, Stefan. And we sold this to a company called Pneumatic a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago. And this was my second startup that I did. My first startup was Markmillen. We sold that way back in 2004. We founded that company in 1993, me and Stefan, my partner. And we wanted to go into this e-commerce thing because we thought that e-commerce was going to be the next big thing. But we were totally wrong. The internet hadn't even started. It was just getting started. And even if it started, there were not enough new users on it. So we were 10 years early. But we changed the company to become an ISP, internet service provider, sold internet connections to consumers, and then we sold the company to Vodafone. My third startup was founded last year, and I like to talk about this one. It was founded in January 2015, and it's a game publisher. So this is a company that does games. We signed the game in January. It was published in October, and within the year of founding the company, we had managed to have revenues of $1 million from this game. And the next game is coming in the spring, and we have 3 games. One is published, and there are 2 coming later this year. So Raw Fury Game, that's a game publisher. Now I'm also on a bunch of boards, companies. Solid Clouds, that's a game company. IGI, that's the Icelandic gaming industry, and SSG, that's the creative industry, Board of Creative Industries. Now, there's my Twitter account, my homepage. I have some stuff that I write for you guys, and then I signed this for reading. It's all kept on my homepage. And if you want to talk to me, I will be available on Fridays. Now, there will be some TAs with me in this course. I don't know who they are. We haven't figured that out, but we have plenty of time to do that. And this is the content. This is what we are going to explore. A lot of concepts here, so I'm going to go through these things. So these are the lectures as they come. They may not be in this particular order. There might be changes due to technologies later, but this is what we're going to do. So Friday lecture is going to be about exploring technology. So I want to explain to you, because you probably don't know what technology is. So I'm going to explain it. Everybody thinks they know what it is. We can see it when we look at it. We can understand it when we look at it. But there's a technical term that I want to introduce to you. And how do we define technology, and how do we understand how people behave when they interact with technology? And then I'm going to talk about exponential, this mathematical property that is so powerful in computers and in a lot of things. What does exponential mean? And how can you predict anything if everything happens exponentially? So if things happen exponentially, nothing is going to happen for a long time. And then finally, when you give up, everything has changed. And that has happened again and again and again. To me, I'm getting used to it, because I see, hey, this is coming. No, it's not. It's going to take a few steps, and then the system will tip. It will go up, knee of the curve. We will explore Moore's law, and then I'm going to talk about this adjacent possible thing. Now, adjacent possible is this mysterious concept that technology arrives when the conditions are right for it. The telephone was invented in 1876. Why was that? Because people could build those things, and also we had electricity. Electricity did not exist as a useful way for man to use until somewhere in the middle of the century, or decade, or century, sorry. So why are things invented when they are? And things like this, these are all technologies. We don't think about them as technology. Who thinks book is a technology? It's actually a brilliant technology. It's a distribution mechanism. It has like 300, 400 screens. For each page, there's a separate screen. Somebody invented this a long time ago. Glasses were invented many years ago, and then many decades ago, centuries ago, I'm not sure, 18 or 15 something, 1500 something. And that was the time when people discovered they were either far-sighted or nearsighted. They didn't know this because it didn't matter. Reading exploded. Well, actually, glasses were sort of invented after the printing press because people needed to see when they were reading. They didn't have this need before. So we will look at this. And then I'm going to explore, how does innovation happen? Is it this brilliant scientist that sits in the basement thinking things? Or is it by accident? Or is it by some lucky thing? I'm actually going to introduce these concepts to you. The slow hunch. It takes a long time for ideas to come. And usually when you look back, You see it in a different way. Serendipity, that's the process where you discover things that you were not looking for. And liquid network, that's the network around you. When you come in, this is why I like to work on projects where there are different types of people in the same room. So you take an artist, a brain surgeon, computer programmer, a hacker, put them in a room and tell them to do something. Would that be a better idea than to have 4 engineers sit in a room? It might be, it probably is, because you need these network effects. If everybody in the room is the same, you don't get any new ideas. And then I'm going to talk about the diffusion of innovation. So let's imagine that we have this new thing here. I think the graphic here talks about iPhone. So the iPhone comes into the market. How does this thing get diffused into society from the makers of this to people that are using this? For example, the telephone took a long time to penetrate the whole market. Computers took less time. Phones took even less time. And here's the iPhone. So there's this, the innovators, and then the crazy people, that people would buy anything from Apple. And they will wait in line. They just have to have it. Even if it's low quality, has bad calls, really expensive, they have to have it. But then the early majority, those are the ones that will talk to the other people and look at their phones and say, oh, this is cool, maybe I should get one. And they will maybe wait for the second version. And then all the way to the laggards who will only buy new stuff when the old burns down or something. So when the old VCR cassette recording thing breaks, they will go and buy something else, DVD. And what are customers really buying? Sometimes people invent things, but people are looking for other things than they imagine. Lots of stories. Now there is a sort of chasm here. This is the tipping point. You have to get this to enough people, and then I'm going to talk about the hype cycle, which is really useful way of thinking about technology. Then technology has to disappear. When it becomes mature enough, it has to go away. And there are a lot of technologies that are going away. One thing that is going away is 2 things. The internet is going away. It's only when you have no internet that you really realize that you don't have internet. And you kind of expect this to be everywhere. And wherever I go, to all the cafes and bars and workplaces that I work, I'm always connected, because the computer will find the next Wi-Fi that I'm already registered to. I'm always connected. It's the same as with electricity. You would not buy a house and ask the question, do you have electricity? But way back, people would ask that question. So it has to be, the technology becomes irrelevant, and now style takes over. And then it's not good to be an engineer, because they may be a bad designers. There are exceptions to this, but the design and emotion becomes more important. Then I'm going to talk about disruptive technology, technology that changes everything. For example, the iPhone disrupted the telephone industry, totally destroyed some companies. Nokia, Research in Motion, or whatever it's called, RIM, with the BlackBerry. I mean, there are people that use BlackBerry, but they became irrelevant really, really fast. So it was a huge disruption. The internet is a disruption. Technologies that change everything, and then the reaction to disruptive technologies by the companies that are in the industry before is always the same. They will laugh and they will rationalize. Have you seen how expensive this is? Have you seen how low quality this is? Now we're doing our stuff and we're happy with it until they don't have any customers anymore. Then the dilemma. So let's say you're a manager and you're in an industry. Let's imagine the auto industry, and you create premium cars, expensive big cars. This happened in the 80s in the US. And then Toyota comes with a crappy little Corolla, really cheap, small, Not as nice, but it works. And the reaction is, well, we don't need to compete. We have high quality stuff. We don't need to compete with this. We're not going to make crappy cars like Toyota is doing. We're going to make our own cars, the Jeeps and the big cars. But then Toyota gets better, and they move upstream. They move sort of up the chain. They make better cars, higher value cars. And then finally, the manager, they have to decide, should we compete in this low-end part of the market with cheap stuff, with lower margins? I make less profit here. Or should we continue this high profit margin? Should I stop making the high profit margin and start to compete in a low margin? I mean, that's bad management decision. But maybe that's the only choice you have. So that's the dilemma. Why sell cheap version when you have high-end product? Well, the high-end product is going away anyway. Then I'll talk about broadcast century, the cognitive surplus. You know, the 20th century was the century that people watched TV. And they sat there and they watched TV. Whatever was coming to the screen, they would watch. And it's a very, very powerful medium. You sit down and you can be there for hours. It sucks you in. The brain activity is gone. You feel relaxed. It's like drugs, you know. You relax. There's no activity in your brain. So don't watch TV before you take an exam. It will shut down your brain. Cognitive surplus is the time that people had to do stuff if they were not watching TV. And this is what we discovered when the internet came. Wikipedia came. Suddenly people started to type in articles on Wikipedia, and people asked, where do you have the time? Well, you don't watch TV anymore. I'm going to talk about the long tail. That's there are movies that can be made today that were not possible to make a few years ago. Musicians that are, you can watch them live performing today. It was impossible a few years ago. The power law is just the distribution in a system. I'm going to talk about that. And then the digital transformation, when the business model changed. So I'm going to talk about freakonomics, freemiums, millennial, how they behave, economics of connecting this network effect, and why these things like Uber and stuff works. Then I'm going to talk about, can we sort of make a plan to not go broke if I'm doing a business? Can I survive? Or can I, given the adjacent possible of the day, can I create something new? Can I find a problem that people are trying to solve? And how do you do this? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Then we go into the machine, talk about computers and their evolution, because they're so much part of technology. And the second example of technology that is disappearing is the computer. If you look at an iPad, it's a computer. It has a disk drive, it has memory, it's everything. It's an operating system, but you don't look at it as a computer. You can give it to a 2-year-old, and they know how to use it. But it's still a computer. It has disappeared as a concept. But the first computer started in the 60s, shortly after the war. The revolution begins with the Altair 8080, famous computers. So I'm going to go through this and see where we're going. And then I'm going to talk about the software, because the software is the thing that works today. I'm going to talk about machine learning. There's actually an algorithm or a machine learning algorithm out there that can actually detect cats in videos. Now, what a stupid application would that be? So you can find cats. So here's a picture, and you give this to this machine learning algorithm, and they will point to the cat in the picture. That's a stupid thing to do. But Google managed to do this 2012. So they take all the videos from the internet that had cats. That's like, zillion. I mean, it's probably every second video. And they fed this into this neural network and told them to train and find cats. So they trained, iterated again and again and again. It trained itself to recognize cats. and now it can recognize cats better than humans. But if you do this in 1960s, it would be really, really hard. But at the same time, in 1960, you would take a picture and give it to a 2-year-old. Tell me where the cat is. And they would, here. So it's a very, very easy task for a child, very difficult for computers. But a few years ago, they managed to crack it. So we are now in times where things are really, really getting interesting. Machine learning algorithms are coming, and they will mean a lot of change. So we start with the GUIs and then go into machine learning. And then augmented and virtual reality. We saw virtual reality. There's also augmented reality, where I, for example, have glasses and I can see some overlays in the glasses. I can see, I don't know, the temperature or where I am, your names, something like this. So new user interfaces. So we're sort of escaping the keyboard. So we're sort of escaping the keyboard and realizing the world in a different way. Then I talk about the network, the history of the internet, why the internet works. It's not something that we can take for granted that the internet did work. It's actually a very, very simple mechanism, and it works because it's so simple. And if you want to add a new service to the internet, you don't have to talk to the president of the internet, because he doesn't exist or she doesn't exist. Nobody controls these things. Of course there are controls, but you can do whatever you want within the network. And that's the beauty. Internet of Things, that's one of the buzzwords. The smart home. All the lights in my house, they're controlled by my iPhone. If I want to put the light on, I'll do it here. And you can have a thermostat. You can have. I have this thermometer for when I'm cooking steak. I have this thermometer. Put it in, and my iPhone app will. So I could put the steak on the grill, stick the pin in, and then I can see the temperature inside. So you can actually use the grill, during storms. Don't have to watch it. Intelligent doorknob, and all these devices, they're starting to sort of become frictionless in more ways. Mobile revolution. The mobile is really, really interesting. It's actually the most powerful device in the world. This is the thing that you have carried with you. You sleep with it. You check it 200 times a day, and it's really, really powerful. And people are buying these coloring books today because they're trying to get away from the phone. But it's haunting you. It's coming back and back. And we're going to talk about this. Cellular network generations, the iPhone effect. Really interesting stuff. Social network, the long tail, collaboration, P2P, crowdsourcing. Why does crowdsourcing work? It's a mystery, but people have started to realize why it does. And then the thing that nobody talks about, or at least not many people, that's the local thing. So there's this acronym called SOLOMO. It's called social, local, and mobile. And LO is the local in this. So this is the interesting part. So when you have anything that you do online, the companies can mine this. They can find what you're doing, and they can make life easy for you if you allow them. And use machine learning to find out what you're going to do next. So it's sort of like this predictive thing. So if I'm traveling abroad and I have a meeting, I'm at my hotel, I have a meeting, my devices should tell me, ding, now you should get up and take this bus or this train. And here's the direction. If I'm going to the train station, I want this device to tell me what train I should get on or bus I should take. That's what these devices should do. Machine learning, understanding contents, analyzing big data, stuff like that. Games, I'm into gaming, and I'm going to talk about player types, future game, player motion, serious games, all types of games. And I'm going to convince you why you should have your kids play more video game, because it's really good for them. And it's really, and I'm also going to explain why, if you have a surgery, it's very important that your doctor plays one of these shooter games, because they're going to be so much better than the next guy. Games are good for you. Don't overdo it, but they're good for you. Gamification. Here's fooling you into thinking that you're having fun when you're not. You know, we should gamify more things. Have fun stuff, you know. And I have lots of examples of how people can make fun. One example, bike to work. Bike to work. You get all these idiots to get their bikes out because it's a competition now. It's a competition. You can see a leaderboard. I'm gonna take an extra, you know. So, and then robotics, drones. You can actually buy a robotic like this and train it. Tell it to do stuff. $22,000. And all these drones, I mean, the world of the drone has started. And I'm going to talk about the future, what's next, and things that are coming in the future. So the textbook is available as PDF. You don't need to buy anything. I have some interesting books. I'm going to just keep this in the slides for you to read. I use this engine that moves markets, the innovation dilemma, of course. And here are some really, really nice books. Where the good ideas come from, I use a lot from that. And this is one is the future of the internet and how we can stop it, because people want to control the internet. And start with why. So I'm going to let you look at this. Interesting websites. Here's my homepage. And I'm just going to go into this part because we have only 2 minutes left. The grading will be 6 assignments every 2 weeks. They're not going to be huge. They're going to be a few questions. 8% is best 5 out of 6. Online discussions, I haven't thought about how I'm going to do this, but I have time to do that. And then the main job that you should be working on is this research bit. And that's what you should be thinking of. What would I like to talk about in my paper? Term project, study of research, can be anything. And now you need to start thinking about what, here are the milestones. I will put up study groups, and I use the course, this is the course, I use my school a lot. And there are lots of online, I have Piazza, and this is where the reading material is. So if you go to this is called Stundarskrá. You know, pay attention to this. This is important for you. Very important. If you want to know the reading list, you go there. And the reading list will be there. This is the text you see on the screen by the door. And here's the agenda. And just take a look at this, and I will talk about this in the next lecture. So everything is planned. We have Easter break there. And next lecture is this lecture, Journey Exploring Technology. But I will be traveling. I had to go to Barcelona. I apologize for that. So I will record the lecture and put it online on Saturday. I mean, this is online anyway. Question?
Are any of the assignments group assignments?
Probably not. Are any of the assignments group assignments? No, I don't think so. But the online discussion is going to be, yeah.
And the research paper is also just like
Individual, yes. But you have a study group. Okay, we're out of time. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to this in the next few weeks. If you have questions, I will be here for a few minutes. Thank you.